The VFW is like a veteran clubhouse, or better yet, fraternity house, and I was a pledge. They did everything they could to throw my game off, talking to me about nothing while I was pouring drinks, changing the drink orders while I was making them. Ben was the main culprit. Ben's position is running the bar. Willie had gone over the top of him by starting my training before Ben had even met me. But I didn't take it personal. Ben gives everybody crap. He and Buddy really get into it. Buddy's the type of man who has no patience for crap, and Ben has crap to spare. They had a little spat in the first 20 minutes of my shift. But it was nothing personal, just simply the bickering between brothers. Here's an example of Ben's behavior. Marty and Ben had a debate about whether Secretary of State Clinton or Obama nominated Mitchell. Ben said, "I'll get letterhead straight from the State Department." Ben was willing to bet $100 that he was right and even put his money on the table. Marty said he didn't want to take his 100. I told him that I had the internet on my phone and could look it up on Google. I found a blog about the appointment, but was called away to handle another customer. I left the phone with Ben, who read through it and picked the parts he liked that best supported his argument. His claims didn't win over Marty, so Marty took the phone and countered with his own quotations from the blog text. Ben simply said it was a blog and not a good source of content. If they wanted real evidence, he would get them assigned documentation from the State Department. He left before the argument could be resolved. Right after he left, I settled it by reading some passages from CNN.com. Marlene sat at one end of the bar and let me do my thing. There were quite a few less voids in the computer this time. They want me to come back Tuesday and work through next week because Marlene is going to Greensboro to visit her mother. This shift was much busier than Thursday, but I was glad that it was like that on the second, not the first tour. It's a great atmosphere in that bar. All the guys constantly buy rounds for each other. They might fuss, but as Chester says, it's all one big family. Chester's another regular at the bar. He's got a whole squad set up, and they take up one end of the bar. He calls this his team. He's got a first team and a second team, but I've yet to meet anyone from the second team. They all have numbers that he assigns them according to their rank. Chester's a good guy, and most of the things he says actually have content. He reminds me a lot of Brother Malcolm with these circular eyeglasses he wears. He always sits at the end of the bar that has the news on. He's originally from New Orleans. He only drinks Heineken, but not from the glass. He brings in his own coffee mug, which I fill up with ice, and he pours the beer into the mug. Periodically, I have to ask him if he wants to add any more ice to his mug. I remember him telling me not to mind them messing with me. They're just doing that to see how intelligent I am. Many of these guys have known each other for over 20 years. Chester had known Willie for 34 years. Speaking of Willie, I had another good conversation with Willie about his backstory and his involvement in the community. He talked about how we've got to start treating our women better. I tell my son, you got to stop playing games with these women. There's too much going on out there and the consequences are too high. He talked about going to Nam to be a military policeman, and he ended up in the infantry. He was an 11 Bravo. He said he got shot down and burnt up real bad. He said that he went out with Big Red 1 and that the North was killing us out there. He also said that he did his community service for the veterans because someone did it for him when he was in the hospital. He talked about 2 other projects he did at the VA hospital. On Thursdays, he sets up a pub at the VA, brings over some juices and non-alcoholic beers and some playing cards, and brings a mini VFW bar experience to the servicemen there. He also started an Adopt a Veteran program. This involves routine visits, writing letters, and going by the hospital on their birthdays. On these birthdays, the volunteers spend the day with their veteran. They bring them a little cake and one dish of whatever kind of food they want. A lot of these guys in there are never getting out, Willie said to me. I finished up the tour and went in the back to count up the tickets and make sure that the numbers in my drawers were correct. After I was done, I grabbed my coat, shook the hands of my customers, and stepped back out in the wind.